Welcome, everybody. This will be a talk about an opportunity to have a new OWASP project. First of all, I'm Saiz. I'm heading the Innovation and Security group in the BBVA Labs. BBVA is a Spanish bank. We already have some work that we have open sourced. You can, if you search GitHub and BBVA, or if you can follow that link. Okay. Let's start with something very basic, that is, which are requirements, which are controls. That's something that in the literature of security we always will encounter, and we have a lot of controls, a lot of standards, writing a long list of controls. We must take into account that also we have some common controls in our projects, in our companies. And there is also common controls that we need to test and need to know how it's the current status of each control. So first question, how many of you think your organization keep control status information current? How many? One? Okay. I think you are right. This is very optimistic. I think that we really don't know what we have in our productions. So let's start with some basics. What is the current status of, what is the state of the art in the security in the CI/CD pipelines? First, we have static, dynamic, interactive. Don't know which will be the next buzzword. Application security testing. So we test against our code. We also have software composition analysis, testing our dependencies, which are the vulnerabilities in our dependencies. We have a new tool that is, we can test the security of the containers, because once you have built the container and test it, you know the status of that container, so it's pretty good. The problem is when you have three different tools to test, and you have a lot of vulnerabilities to manage, you need some vulnerability correlation tool. Also, if you are advanced and if you have a lot of projects, maybe you will need some security requirements and threat management tool. And some of us, sometimes we have also abuse story checks. Okay, that's the hype cycle from Gartner, and this is the tools we have presented. And this one was a category called Application Security Testing Orchestration, ASTO, that tries to combine all of these tools and orchestrate and automate the results. Okay, but which are the gaps? We are checking the application and now the containers too, but we think that this is not enough. DevOps practices and software-defined everything allow us to automate the building of our complete infrastructure. So as as the fly checklist, we have a lot of complex and automated environment. We also have some manual check-in that you need to check the engines, and you need to check the engines whatever you are flying on 747 or a small Cessna. So let's see which are these checklists. We have a pre-flight checklist that it's like our build time. So before launch to the production, before fly, you need to pass some checks. And during the flight, you also have some checks that will be our runtime checks. Pilots also have a quick reference handbook in case of an incident. This is something like our playbooks in SOR tools, the automation of our response on security incidents. So let's see if we can borrow something from the testing practices in software development. When we do feature testing, one of the things that it's good is a simple test can be safely extrapolated. So if you have a feature that tests something like a balance with 1,000 euros, you make a test about that specific figure, and if it's passed, it's okay, and you don't need to test if the same test will apply to 200, 500, or whatever. But feature testing is business dependent, and it's difficult to reuse. So in that example, the amount, the feature of related with amounts is easy to extrapolate, but the specific fields used are related to your business application. So it's difficult, the same test being used to in another project or in another company. So let's see how this map with security control testing. We face a complexity in security testing. It's that we have two different problems. We have an all or nothing problem and an orchestration problem. Let's stop here a moment about what is the problem with intentional risk. In intentional risk, the attacker will see which are the controls you have in place. So if you left one of these windows without fence, the attacker will attack that specific window. So you need to test, you need to see if you have all your windows covered with a control. So this is the problem of security. We need to test all off or none off condition. You need to test all of my machines, all my users, none of my users. You need to test something among different places. This is an example of Maruzinovich that they have just deploying new features in Sysmon, and he talks about any of and all of filters. The other problem is orchestration. We need to pipeline and orchestrate the output of different tools as inputs of other tools. If you need to test something among different servers, you need to first to make a list of the servers and then apply something to the server, maybe look for that specific type of file, and then test something about that specific file. So you need some recursion here. And you need to orchestrate also the existing tools, whether they are commercial ones or small command line. And this is the big problem. The problem is that the best practices ask you for 4 or 5 different testing methods. But there are a lot of small control testing that must be done. It's difficult because when you see the long tail of controls that you need to test, you have a long list of checklist of we have different standards, and none of them have less than 100-200 of controls. Sometimes to test that control, you will need more than one test. So this is expanding. You need to test hundreds and hundreds. You need to have hundreds and hundreds of different tests. And when you see the long tail, the usual reaction is, okay, let's forget it. I have the best practices in the industry. Because the cost of development and the cost of maintenance of that test will be overwhelming for you. But good news, standardized security controls is easier than feature controls. Security controls are very similar from project to project and from company to company. We NIST talk about common controls. Controls are very similar. We have even industry standards. And this can be done. This is on our all-known SNORT IDS. You have rules, you have a tool, and you have rules maintained by the community, maintained by some companies that create some of the rules. But this is one example. You have also, yeah, sorry, it's very small, and I can even see what is this one. I think this is a Jara rule. I think from Florian Roth. You have Jara rules, and there is a lot of people working on Jara rules. There are a lot of companies contributing on Jara rules. There are a lot of tools around it. We also have some OWASP projects like mod security. We have rules. We have Sigma for SAM response. Sigma is for log files, what SNORT is for network traffic, and Jara is for files. So we are proposing SUSTO. And SUSTO will be for security control testing, what Sigma is for log files, what SNORT is for network traffic, and Jara is for files. So why we are proposing SUSTO? This is a new category. We want to extend the concept of ASTO because we think that first you need to be systematic. You need to cover the long tail and not just 4 tools. And we think that it should be universal. We need to cover the full stack, not just the application, because we have the opportunity now. We have a lot of our infrastructure is defined using APIs, and you can check the exact configuration of the APIs. And we have also tools to check the configuration of the systems. Sometimes you have configuration in that you can check with command line, and we are also working on how to appify command line interfaces. We have a tool that we are developing to do this, because we have seen that we will need it to cover this. And let's deep dive with which is the different parameterization of the control testing. First, we start with risk. We have controls for that risk. We have lots of list of controls, and we when we do threat modeling or risk analysis, we assess the risk and we declare which should be the controls for that risk, to cover that risk. But that control, it's like a class. It's a generic control. You can test a declared control. You have the description of the control. But to launch a test, you need to know which instance of that control to test. So controls are instantiated in running controls. So you deploy a control in a target, in a final system. For the control classes, you can have a class of test that you parameterize, putting your desired goal. So you have 2 different kinds of parameterization. One is which is the target, the other one is which is your desired goal. And when you have both, you can launch the test. So which will be the main features of SUSTO? First, this should be generic in their objectives. You need to know what do you want to test. But this should be configurable in their instantiation. You need to know which is the target instance against which system you will test, and you need to put which is your desired goal, being Boolean or being a score. Maybe if you are using commercial tool, the tool will send you which is the final score of your system, or if you are testing against vulnerabilities, you have the score of that vulnerability. And you need to assess which is your minimum, which is your passing score. You should facilitate the integration with existing tools, because you will need intermediate tools to obtain information. And you need to be able to launch the execution of specific tests. Manual intervention should be minimized. The final objective is to automate, but we know that sometimes human intervention will be required. That's okay, but it should be minimized. And it's very important to have an architecture that don't introduce new threats, because sometimes if you want to test something, you need access. You need access, and then your testing becomes a critical path to your production system. So beware. Sometimes one of our more recent projects, we have no access to production at all, not even to test the vulnerabilities of the system. We test in the deploying pipeline. You fixed your version, you deploy, and nobody access. So we need to convince our audit department that the test that we did in the deployment phase are valid for our production systems, because we don't change. It's an immutable infrastructure. So if you test it in your deployment, this is the same you have in the production. Okay, and let's see, for example, which could be an example of risk control and test. There are lots of different standards that ask you for encryption in the communication channel. And one of the most typical control to use is use TLS. Okay. So we will have a target that will be, which is the URL that we will launch the test against. And the other one is, which is the minimum version of TLS that we allow. Maybe you have some regular project and it's enough to have TLS, but maybe you need to comply with PCI and you need TLS 1.2, 1.3. So that's a common test against a control. And you have two different parameters. And you will obtain some results that will be okay or not okay, and details if you need to test against the version number, for example, and you need to log the result of the testing. Okay, so to cover that new category that we are proposing, we have started an internal project, but an internal project that will be open sourced, and we want to start an OWASP project for them. If there is enough consensus that this is something that is required or it will be useful for us, for all of us. And we have started the definition of a tool that is called Overlord, and how the architecture of that tool will be, we will have rules that are able to retrieve intermediate information using existing or for developing new tools, rules to check against the results, and with different tools that could be existing application security tools, security testing tools not for application but for system security, and ad hoc scripts that we and you can write. We will need to manage the configuration of that rules, and we need to put the context to that rules in order to launch the tools with our specific parameters, both targets and desired goals. One of the questions that we had when we first talked about this is, will you put inside that tool information about the risk and how risks and controls are related? We want to have a clean tool. We think that the risk management should be done in another layer. Risk management is important. I mean, a risk management tool is important if you need to manage different projects, lots of projects, and you have common controls. If you have these two, if you have both common security controls and a lot of different projects, you will profit for having a tool to manage all of these relationships. But if you are small, maybe you just put your list of tests against your controls. So, and which are the stakeholders that we see in this kind of category and this kind of security tool? First, the cloud service providers, or the everything as a service providers, because now they are providing list of best practices, well architected or whatever, but we think that they will be able to offer the specific test against your deployment and have not only the wording but the code to test. Security vendors, within that existing security vendors, can be very interested in this category. First, the application security requirements and threat management, because they have the list of the projects, the risk, and the controls, our class controls, or control classes. But they need to test, and it's difficult for them to have all of that test. So they can use a tool like this in order to cover the full cycle. Also, governance and risk and compliance tools, that is similar to the first one, but they are even sometimes in a higher position. The existing security tools, our current best practice tools, like static analysis, dynamic analysis, software composition, and correlation. So because they are build-time checking tools, so they are covering one part of the tool. They are covering, they are checking tools in the build time. Also, the security orchestration and I don't remember exactly the SOR. This is the response orchestration, because they are runtime response automation tools. So they have an opportunity. They know how to automate our Demisto or similar Demisto tools, similar. They have an opportunity to cover also the automation in the build time. There is an obvious startup opportunity. If there is a gap, there is a need in the industry. We have checked with some of our colleagues in other companies, and maybe there is an opportunity for startups. We want to start this as a spark in the market. This should be bootstrapping in some way, because everybody is happy in the current situation, even within that all of us see that we can do better. But everybody is comfortable now. It's like a game in a game that everybody it's happy, nobody will change. It's from using game theory. And anyway, if nobody started, your organization will be a stakeholder of this project. Which will be the next steps? Okay, we need feedback and we need contribution. We want to promote this as an OWASP project. Sometimes one of the difficulties, for example, is if I start a GitHub project under BBVA, my colleagues in Santander that are interested, it's difficult for them to be in the BBVA side. So maybe this is something that could be a neutral space to collaborate. We are starting now, both in BBVA and with Santander and AXA, the roadmap of the tool, which will be the features that we will need. We need to start a proof of concept of Overlord as an OWASP SUSTO tool. We need to develop plugins to existing tools. We need to map standard control sets to rules. We will need contribution of community rules, and we will need to we will be happy that cloud service providers or vendors contribute with their own curated rules. Also, SUSTO, it has a meaning inside it. SUSTO is the Spanish word for fright. That's the reason of the ghost. And there's a small child joke that is death of fright. Okay, fright. Ooh. Oh, how frightening. Well, you could have chosen death. So don't fear the long tail. You better choose SUSTO. And that's all for my part. Thank you, everybody.
And we definitely have some time for questions. So if anybody wants to ask a question, I've got a microphone to help out.
wait.
Sorry. No worries, man. First, it's a nice idea, and thank you for your presentation. My question is, do you have anything published already? Is there anything on GitHub or something?
No, not now. Our intention is to work on it in this quarter, and have something published. We will publish the presentation. We have just started to see which are the desired features of the tool, but we want to test as like an agile project. I mean, we don't have the truth. We need to test. So we will start with a mailing list, a community, or a Slack channel, or whatever. We need to see which is the best repository to start. Under BBVA, under OWASP, depends of the timing. It's easy for us to start one project behind our GitHub account, but we are starting now.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I was saying that you covered a lot of things. You mentioned full stack versus application security test and orchestration. You mentioned rules, some of the standards that exist. And maybe let's say 2-3 sentences, what will be the output of the OWASP project?
The output should be the tool to be able to launch and orchestrate the results, and the rules contributed by the community. So in OWASP, we already have some projects that have both tool like mode security and the common rule set. This is something that you can contribute with the code. You can contribute with the core of the core, with the different plugins, with development of small test, and with the rules. So there are opportunities for everybody to contribute, and we think that as the main problem is the number of tests that will be needed, we need a community effort, and this is if we are able to start this community, then it will run by themselves.
Okay, so I don't hog the mic. A quick one will be, how do you define, what is full stack versus application?
I mean, not only the code of the application. Imagine AM. I mean, check your LDAP, or check your the configuration of your AWS account. I mean, is two-factor authentication established or not? Is that specific kind of login on or off? You have a lot of if you take a control, you need to have a tool to test if that control is okay or not, and you can do it manually. I mean, but at the end, if we are able to automate, everything will be smooth. I mean, for example, one of the things that we want to do is ask our pen testing, ethical hacking projects to select the 5-10 most critical vulnerabilities and make a rule to test if that specific vulnerability is present or not. Because how many of you have seen vulnerabilities that has been detected, has been fixed, and months later appears again. If you know exactly which is the vulnerability, please automate the test. In these cases, most of that cases will be specific to you. So it will be rules that are internal rules for you. But imagine that there is a common rule that could be shared with the community. Okay, you have the opportunity to share that rule.
Thanks, Luis.
Any other questions?
So security tools or security testing tools are or were not really known for having good interfaces to trigger scans and leverage automation. Which is a prerequisite, right, for this tool? What are your observations over the last couple of years? Has that improved?
We need some plugins to do the work with, mostly for existing commercial tools. That this is something to develop. API controls, API controls that are defined APIs will be easy to check. And one of the difficulties that we have seen is that there are lots of small command line tools to be launched. That's the reason we have started. There is an open source project that is called Capo that tries to appify existing command line interfaces. So if you have a command line, you have an API with very small effort. And that's the way we think that it could be solved, that problem, that obviously there are a lot of small tools that are existing small tools that they are historical and don't have an API. So you can check the project. The project is already open source. We have a first proof of concept in Python, and we are now migrating to Go in order to don't depend of the specific runtime environment.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we need to wrap up and get ready for the next presentation. Thanks, Luis. She's probably around for more questions.